anything. Oh, you put in my eye.
Back.
Okay, everybody, so my best performing videos happen to be the worst episodes of Cartoon Network. See, leaving on that kind of a negative note isn't super fun, so I kind of wanted to counteract this karma and do the best episodes of Cartoon Network shows. When I was complaining about all these shows, I kept forgetting how good they were, and that even the worst episodes weren't even that bad. So that's why I feel like I want to make a video that's saying all the best episodes, the ones I recommend, and kind of make it more personal to myself, so that way you guys know what's going on. So today we're going to be diving in to Camp Lazlo, regular show, and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, not in that order. What's up, everybody? It's Johnny 2000. And today, we're diving into the best Cartoon Network episodes. Okay, so first let's start off with a really popular one. No, not Adventure Time, but Regular Show. So Regular Show is that sci-fi comedy about Mordecai and Rigby, and pretty much their job is just working as like park attendants, but everything explodes into supernatural consequences when things go wrong, and it's a really jaw-dropping show, I would say. Since I don't have a lot of experience with this, I did my research and I tried to find the one that the fans would recommend the most. And this one was so funny, and the episode premise was so interesting. And unlike the format wars I mentioned in the last video, this is a perfect representation of this show. So let's get into Excellent. So Mordecai and Rigby are watching an action show when the actor flips a car in every episode. Benson interrupts, urging them to work, but just as Mordecai turns off the TV, a commercial for the Excellent Challenge catches Rigby's attention.
Challenge appear with the ability to blow everyone away. The Excellent Challenge is that challenge. 12 eggs, chili, cheese, biscuits, and a fruit ball. Finish in under an hour and your party eats for free.
Challenge offers a trucker hat reading, "I'm excellent," to anyone who could finish a massive 12-egg omelet. Obsessed with the hat, Rigby convinces the reluctant Mordecai to visit the restaurant. They go to the restaurant and Rigby orders the omelet despite the warnings from the waiter.
Oh. I wouldn't recommend the Excellent Challenge. It's more of a promotional item.
I'm confused. I'm the customer, right?
Well, yes.
What does that sign say over there?
However, his attempt ends in disaster when he suffers a severe allergic reaction to the eggs and is rushed to the hospital. In the ambulance, a weak Rigby admits that he thought eating quickly would lessen the reaction, claiming the hat was worth it.
Did I win it?
Dude, you didn't even come close.
At the hospital, the doctor informs everyone that Rigby is in a coma and might not survive, so Benson criticizes Mordecai and Rigby for their irresponsibility. This obviously enrages Mordecai. He punches Benson, accusing him of prioritizing work over Rigby's life. After storming out, Mordecai returns to the restaurant and begs for the hat, but the waiter refuses, citing that it's not the policy. Mordecai panics and promises to win the hat for Rigby. So Mordecai heads back to the restaurant where the waiter gives the same threat he did to Rigby, but you know, his friend's dying, so he's gonna do it anyway. He attempts to try the omelet, but it does not work out, and he fails once again.
Forget this place.
Back at the hospital, Benson apologizes for his earlier comments and brings Skips with him.
A long time ago, I knew a guy by the name of Jonathan Kimball. He used to work at the park, and just like Rigby, he was obsessed with the hat.
Jonathan Kimball, a former park worker obsessed with the same challenge. He also developed a strategy to win, but disappeared before he could prove it. So Skips and Benson present Kimball's journal, which details his methods, crumble the biscuits into water, and divide the omelet into manageable chunks. Mordecai, determined to keep his promise, decides to try again. He trains with the journal's tips and returns to the restaurant with the park crew. Apologizing to Benson for his earlier outburst, Mordecai admits that Benson is actually a good friend despite his flaws. Mordecai begins the challenge using Kimball's methods. The waiter recognizes the technique, tries to stop him, but the park crew defends Mordecai, leading to a brawl with the restaurant staff. But then he finishes the omelet on time. But the waiter reveals that completing the challenge unlocks a final test. Oh my gosh. Mordecai is teleported to a room.
You have made it to the final test of the Excellent Challenge. Choose your prize, but take heed, for if you choose incorrectly, you will die.
And is greeted by the Excellent Knight, an elderly man in armor. The knight explains that Mordecai must choose the correct hat to survive, and picking the wrong one will result in death, like what happened to Jonathan Kimball. Recalling Rigby's description of the trucker hat, Mordecai selects it and survives. The knight congratulates him and sends him back to the restaurant. Finally at the hospital, Mordecai places the hat on Rigby, who miraculously wakes up from his coma and thanks him. However, Rigby immediately spots a new commercial advertising for another eating challenge, and he says they should do it. Benson wonders if removing the hat will put Rigby back in the coma, and Mordecai jokingly suggests to test the theory. The episode ends with everyone approaching Rigby to remove the hat, leaving him screaming in protest. See, this one is really fun. I did a little bit of research on it, and it's definitely one of the best examples of the format of regular show. It has everything from the mundane goal of the main character that escalates into ridiculous scenarios. Like even having Rigby in a coma and then finding the journal of the deceased person. Like this is all crazy stuff, but regular show does it super well. Even the final test being so ridiculously hard manages to take it to a whole new level. I definitely really liked this episode, and I feel like if I had to get anybody into regular show, I would definitely show them this one. But yes, regular show always ceases to amaze me. I'm really gonna have to start diving deep into the show myself and watching the series in general. So now let's get on to a more obscure show. I recently did a retrospective on the finale of this show and had a lot of people requesting more videos on it. Yeah, Camp Lazlo. Camp Lazlo is about the monkey Lazlo that goes to Bean Scout camp at Camp Kidney, and it's a really funny, optimistic show with this quirky monkey and his times by the lakes in the summer. So the episode I really wanted to point out of being one of the best for this show is Hello Summer, Goodbye Camp, Season 3, Episode 1, or the end of Season 2. I had trouble figuring out exactly which production order this was on. So let's dive into Hello Summer, Goodbye Camp. So the Bean Scouts return to Camp Kidney for summer again. On their way, they sing the camp's song. But as they get to camp, Slinkman stops the bus and everybody realizes that Camp Kidney is no more. They even find only the mess hall left, but even that's taken away. Slinkman tries to argue with the movers, but they take him along with the other stuff and check him off on a clipboard. Lazlo begs for the jelly bean cabin totem pole because it's the last thing of Camp Kidney remaining. But the movers move on and tell him that the place is going to be a parking lot after the 4th of July.
Somebody call the cops!
Then Jane Doe comes in an acorn-shaped car and decides to bring the Bean Scouts to Acorn Flats, in which she explains that now that Camp Kidney is closed down, they'll be sent to another camp. The Acorn Scouts are super upset, specifically Patsy because of Lazlo. It soon becomes night, and the Bean Scouts discuss how much they miss Camp Kidney. The only one who doesn't miss it's Edward, surprise. Meanwhile, Lazlo goes over to Acorn Flats by himself. A giant bean comes out to tell Lazlo how to save Camp Kidney.
I have to figure out a way to save my camp now.
I know how to save your camp.
I do?
Sure.
Well, can you tell me?
Sure.
And tells him the only way is to go into the woods, find the Rock of Hope, and the worldwide Bean Scout Jamboree. So Lazlo wakes up and is convinced it's all a dream. He explains his plan to the fellow campers, while everybody else wants to join Edward, but Raj and Clam obviously are on Lazlo's side. Lazlo, Raj, and Clam are seen going to the top of a hill and get a water break. Raj then drops the overpacked backpack on the edge as the dead miners logging chute to get the Rock of Hope. Meanwhile, the other campers at Acorn Flats keep talking about how this camp is going to be great, and this really fun camp that they're all excited about. Edward sees that it's actually math camp, so he led them astray. Meanwhile, the jelly beans are seen on the chute and just about to finish until the plank breaks and Clam's toes hold onto the end of the plank. Lazlo soon helps, but Clam falls off. Patsy comes in swinging on a rope and rescues the two.
You're okay.
I heard a couple of Bean Scouts were trying to save Camp Kidney, and I thought they might need some help.
Patsy says that the rock is right over there, but Lazlo soon discovers that it's just a bunch of pebbles. Soon finds the rock, but it's a plaque. The worldwide Bean Scout Jamboree is seen, and the four try to get in, but a French snail doesn't let them.
Hey, what's with the pink-haired scout?
He's from France.
From France? I'm from France!
Okay, come in quick, but don't touch anything.
The snail lets them in and takes them to the Big Bean's palace. Back at Acorn Flats, Edward is worried that they're all going to math camp, so he has a dream about being chased by numbers, and it's the same place that Lazlo had his dream, so it's kind of funny.
Lazlo?
Hi, Edward. If you want to help me save Camp Kidney, Listen carefully.
A giant Lazlo head actually emerges and tells Edward how to save Camp Kidney. Lazlo soon finds the bean and hears deep breathing and soon bangs on the glass to break it. It's revealed the magnifying glass that the bean is super small and even wears a similar hat to what Lumpus wears. Lazlo talks to the bean, who says that this was his cousin.
Can I say how happy I am to finally meet you? Outside of my dreams, that is. You're much smaller in person.
What?
Bean says that he closed down Camp Kidney because of the camp's bad parts, like the uniforms. But Raj cries and Lazlo gives him a handkerchief to wipe his tears. Everybody starts crying and it's kind of depressing.
There is something written on the inside of your neckerchief.
Oh yeah, that was there.
A wonderland where summer runs free.
Where I laughed and I played while my good parents paid to let their child come of age and be me.
The Big Bean explains that he wrote it when he went to Camp Kidney, and Lazlo gives it back to him. The Bean smiles at Lazlo, Patsy, and Clam. Meanwhile, Edward and the other Bean Scout and Squirrel Scouts are at the gate of Camp Kidney.
I know this sounds crazy, but I had a dream last night that told me to gather everyone at the gate, and then I'll get what I most desire. I hope it's a voodoo drum.
And a horn is heard. Lazlo, Raj, and Clam all come by on trucks bringing back parts of the camp. The Big Bean congratulates Lazlo, Raj, Clam, and Patsy for their bravery and reopened Camp Kidney.
And for you, Lazlo, a new neckerchief.
Property of HMD. Who's HMD?
Why, it's hand-me-down.
He then gives it to Lazlo with a new handkerchief that says property of HMD, which means hand-me-down. They laugh and the fireworks are set off while they reveal that Lumpus just wakes up after having fallen asleep since the song at the beginning of the episode.
Won't they ever tear this camp down?
Hey, how's it going?
This episode is really fun because it's like, this is definitely what Where's Lazlo should have been, but I like this because it's like, it has a little bit of adventure, has a little bit of antagonism, and I think Patsy's a really welcome addition to this special. If you want to check out a really good episode of Camp Lazlo, this is definitely the one. But yeah, Lazlo is a really great show, and I always forget how closely connected it is to SpongeBob. I would definitely recommend it enough. Welcome summer, goodbye camp. Okay, let's move on to our final one for this video. One of the most popular shows, for good reason, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. So Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends is that show. Don't really need to get into the plot of it because it's in the title. The episode I think is the most perfect to define the show, not only for my own personal bias, because this is my favorite episode. I actually ignored the online recommendations. This one is the funniest. So it's called Frankie, My Dear. Let's talk about how it goes. So Frankie is told by Mr. Harriman to do a bunch of paperwork, which she's obviously really upset about because she'd rather go to a concert she wanted to go to with her friends. Mac, who happens to be at Foster's as well, offers to take care of all the paperwork for Frankie and encourage her to go to the concert. Frankie tries to politely decline Mac's offer, but she ends up taking it, overjoyed, and decides to kiss Mac on the cheek. As she rushes off to go to her concert, Mac develops a huge crush on Frankie. Later, Blue does too.
You're just a kid. Frankie needs a man.
You're not even a human.
Yeah, but I'm not a kid.
You're younger than me.
Yeah, but I'm not a kid. What's 5 times 7?
35. But you're not a dog.
Yeah, but I'm not a kid.
So the two start actually competing for her love the next day, and Frankie is unusually happy from the previous night, mentioning how she met the man of her dreams. Soon, they both argue over who that could possibly be, and they realize that the suitor is neither of them and become super jealous. Next, a pizza guy shows up, and Blue and Mac assume that it's this person they're talking about.
Neither one of us is a match for this perfect specimen of manliness.
My bad.
They're interrupted when it's not true, and Prince Charming, an imaginary friend, comes in, and they think it's them. Suddenly, like, they keep ganging up on the next guy that is potentially Frankie's love, and everybody keeps thinking it's them.
I stole her heart.
Yeah, man, she was ours before you came around.
You mean she likes me?
Am I speaking French? She is in love with you!
No! Now look what you've done!
But eventually Dylan, this really nerdy guy that actually looks her age and appropriate for her, shows up. And it turns out that that's the one she's gonna go on a date with.
Are we just gonna stand by and let our beloved Frankie get stolen away by some boy band looking nice car driving bouquet of roses bringing pretty boy?
Right.
Right. Wait. I mean, no.
No!
So Mac, Blue, Chris, and Prince Charming start to form a team and plan to become Frankie's new boyfriend, which of course is going to end perfect. The plan involves all of them standing on each other's shoulders, wearing a huge overcoat to make it look like they're really one tall person. And Blue is at the top, which is already the biggest mistake. He wears a mustache, and a lot of these jokes are super funny because he's so bad at keeping it together. And Prince Charming comes in disguised as a woman. And I really like Prince Charming like this. It definitely feels right. So they try to make a fool of the date that Frankie's going out with, but Frankie obviously knows it's Blue, and it's a ridiculous disguise, but she doesn't really know what's up.
I'm Frankie's ex-boyfriend.
No, you're not. No, he's not.
Why, schnookums! How could you deny our love? We went out for 20 years.
How old did you say you were?
I'm 22.
Prince Charming keeps trying to take Frankie aside and powder their noses and try to get closer to her, which is actually a deviation of the plan, but whatever. And Blue actually confronts Dylan. Dylan pulls the disguise off, and it turns out he's kind of a jerk. Like, he is aggressive and he's forward, and all the funny jokes are kind of over because this is a real jerk. He claims that Frankie is his property, and she doesn't like Mac, Blue, or any of the other ones. She just feels sorry for them. And then he starts to be really rude to all three of them, saying that nobody would go out with them, and this guy's a real big jerk. But luckily, Frankie overhears all of these insults as she comes back from the powder room and angrily confronts Dylan about everything he just said to her friends. He tries to hide what he did, and it's really terrible, and Frankie actually beats him up. Not only did she beat up Prince Charming, which, I mean, that one might have been fair. Actually, both of them seem pretty fair. In the end, Frankie and the guys are eating pizza at Foster's, and they talk about the way Frankie beat up Dylan, while everybody kind of apologizes to Frankie for ruining her date, but Frankie assures them that they did her a huge favor, and since then she doesn't need a boyfriend, and she's looking for a man, and all of them say that they're not men.
I'm not a man. I'm an imaginary man.
I'm not a man. I'm a teenager.
I'm not a man. I'm just a kid.
Hey, I can beat that. I'm not even human.
Oh, man.
This is one of my favorite episodes of all time, just because all the jokes with Blue as the tall man are just so funny, and they take so long to occur, but like, that's what makes it so brilliant. I'm now realizing that a lot of the main cast members of Imaginary Friends aren't really in this episode, but you know, it only really takes Blue and Mac to have a really good episode, and Frankie is one of the more likable characters because of everything the cast puts her through, and I think it's the perfect amount of time for such an easy episode to occur. But overall, love this episode. You guys definitely need to watch this, and I would recommend it if anybody wants to see a good episode of Foster's. But yeah, that is definitely my favorite episode of Foster's Home. But yeah, do you guys remember this episode? Do you remember how good it was? There's so many good episodes of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends that it was really hard to pick this exact one, but since this is Johnny 2000, I thought I would pick the one most personal to me. So yeah, these are the best episodes of these Cartoon Network shows. I had so much fun going over these with you guys, and stay tuned because Volume 2 is going to be coming out very soon, and we're going to be diving more into the Powerpuff Girls, Chowder, and Flapjack. Maybe I'll throw in another one too. Cartoon Network has some of the best, if not funniest, shows alive. I already went over part 1 and got some really good shows in, but I'm more excited about part 2. Today we're going to go over Ed, Edd and Eddy, Powerpuff Girls, and more. What made Cartoon Network so unique was its cynical take on all these childhood problems, and they really shine in some of these episodes I've picked out for you guys today. Whether it was in the comments or just online through research, I think I found some really good contenders. So without further ado, let's jump in to Volume 2. What's up, everybody? I'm Johnny 2000, here with your 2000s nostalgia from video games, movies, TV, and more. Our first show is Very Beloved, starring 3 boys that kind of remind me of the Three Stooges. Yeah, let's start with Ed, Edd, and Eddy. This episode is called And Ed is Born. So the story begins with Eddy receiving a package from his older brother. He's excited, and he opens it in front of Ed and Double D.
Your brother sent you this?
I think his brother sent it to him, Double D.
Check it out! I bet it's a car or something!
but he only finds baby items like a pacifier, diaper, and a rattle. Oh my god, how old does Eddie's brother think he is? It upsets Eddy, who realizes his brother still sees him as a child, so he decides he's gonna prove his maturity by going home to make a movie showcasing how grown up and successful he has become.
We need a
camera. That's free.
Why do you keep a camera in your dryer, Ed?
What?
So the Eds start filming with Ed providing the camera that he found in his dryer, which confuses Double D, of course, and Eddy is swinging into frame on a rope wearing a fake mustache and pretending to be wealthy. And it's really funny because it's definitely not him at all.
Been investing for years. Real estate, stocks, bonds. Might even buy me a couple of more planets.
Oh my god, Eddy, this is worse for you. The scene falls apart when Ed and Double D unintentionally mess up the setup, and Eddy's mustache falls off, and Eddy storms off in frustration. They try again, filming continues, and things further spiral. Eddy boasts about being the mayor of the cul-de-sac.
I have to slap him around every now and then just to remind him who's boss.
Eddy!
Mocks Kevin, and Kevin enters retaliating, giving Eddy a bicycle wedgie, and he drags him down the street. Eddy's underwear even rips off during the stunt, leaving him humiliated, and Ed enthusiastically shaking the rattle from Eddy's package earlier. At the playground, Eddy claims to own the swings and demands Sarah and Jimmy get off them.
Drill, cough up some dough, then swing.
What'd you say?
This leads to more disruption, because Sarah obviously punches Double D's camera, and Ed ties Eddy to the swing at Sarah's command. Later,
there you go, baby sister. Swing to your heart's content.
Okay, people, a big smile for Eddy's brother.
Ed accidentally swallows the camera, forcing Double D to retrieve it while scolding Eddy for the damage it could take to his digestive system. Then Eddy tries to impress him by claiming that Naz is his girlfriend. However, the plan immediately backfires when he tries to put his arm around her, because she karate kicks him immediately, and he hits a fire hydrant. Johnny and Plank steal the camera, prompting Eddy to bury them in the garden to retrieve it. Then at the junkyard, Eddy shows off his invention, which he calls a hard-boiled egg boiler.
By simply tossing the combustion soon.
Look natural, stay with me.
Thus rendering the egg for all to enjoy.
I'm creating dynamics, Eddy.
Don't get arty on me, Double D.
When he opens the boiler, the Kanker sisters are inside. Just as if this couldn't get any worse. They ambush Eddy, dragging him off for unwanted affection again. Ed and Double D rescue him, but the entire encounter is captured on film, including Eddy's humiliating escape. In one final effort to prove his maturity, Eddy hosts a party at his house, presenting a lively social gathering for his brother. But the guests are revealed to be cardboard cutouts mounted on stolen chickens, and Ralph enters furious that his chickens have been taken, and he attacks the Eds.
And you have stolen roast chickens yet again?
Finally, the chaos culminates when Ralph throws Eddy against a wall, destroying cardboard props and chasing Ed. The camera's knocked from Double D's hands and captures everything just before the battery dies. Double D lays on the ground as he says to the camera, "I think your brother got the picture," and shuts off the whole thing. This episode is like the perfect showcase of like Ed's misadventures, combining like making a movie and the best comedy in the entire series. This episode is like one of my favorites because I love it when they have that trope where the entire cast is making a movie, and I also like it when there's an old relative comes back and you try to appear more successful than you already were, and combining both of these tropes make it a really inventive episode, and seeing the Ed boys be the center of it all is even funnier. Like, these three stooges are hilarious, and seeing them be the one to attempt both of these it's just utter nonsense. And I'm so happy this one exists. So if you guys ever want to show this show to somebody, I would definitely show them this episode first. Next, we have a nice sailor show, revolving around a really optimistic kid and his friends on Stormalong Harbor. Let's do the Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. For this show, I chose the episode Gone Wishin'. So Knuckles successfully steals the heart of the Mermaid Queen, which looks like a clear golden heart-shaped container filled with the teardrop-shaped candies that grant wishes. Knuckles points out to Flapjack that they can use the candies to take themselves to Candy Island. And just as they're about to do that, Flapjack suggests some of the other wishes to have fun during the last day in Stormalong Harbor.
Can we use some of these wishes for fun on our last day in Stormalong?
Yeah, we're never coming back to this dump.
Knuckles' first wish is to have golden eyeballs, which blinds him until he undoes the wish, while Flapjack's first wish is for one of his arms to be super muscular.
I wish I could breathe syrup
and that I had beautiful long hair, and that Doc Hag was a beautiful tame horse.
The pair ends up making a bunch of random pointless wishes, and near the end of the day, around the time the sun is setting, Flapjack tries to get Bubby to make a wish, but she declines, claiming that when it comes to magic, there's always a horrible catch.
Wish me back to normal. I said back to normal.
Flapjack soon notices that the more wishes he and Knuckles use the tears for, the Mermaid Queen's heart starts to kill her a little bit. Oh my gosh, this is so dark. Obviously not wanting the Queen of the Mermaids to die, Flapjack accidentally wishes he knew that he wishes he knew what wish could save her. All the candy in the bowl is gone, and there is still one of Flapjack's hat. So he plans to use the teleportation wish to Candied Island to wish that the bowl was endless. Hence, the mermaid would become a zombie every time somebody wishes. But Knuckles steals Flapjack's candy and wishes for a corn dog and a new hat.
Every time you wish, the mermaid dies a little.
I wish I cared. Oh, I wish.
And the mermaid dies. See, Knuckles is one of the most unlikable characters in the TV show, which is good for comedy, but this is ridiculous. Afterward, the mermaid's corpse turns into a Sky Maid, and the Sky Maid leaves after giving Flapjack an explanation as to how they were created and tells him to never stop wishing, and all his dreams will come true.
So never stop wishing, Flapjack, and all your dreams will come true. Even the scary ones?
Yes. She briefly then returns, telling Knuckles that a hat and a corn dog are two things.
I told you mermaids are weird.
And the episode ends there. The thing I like about this episode is that it feels like a tall tale you'd be told in some place like Stormalong. Like, it's the perfect definition of what a Flapjack episode should be. Flapjack's optimism and Knuckles' selfish behavior, and actually having the stakes be more interesting because of the mermaid that will be dying every wish they take.
I'm blind!
One that I've seen quite often in the comments with 3 of the best crime-fighting girls you'll ever meet, the Powerpuff Girls. Who remembers the episode The Rowdy Rough Boys? Yeah, me neither. Mojo Jojo has been causing mischief in Townsville, once again, surprise, and his developments of laser cannons and towering mechanics help him terrorize the city around the Powerpuff Girls. After suffering 3 profile defeats at the hands of the girls, Mojo is at the end of his rope. During his most recent stay in prison, he goes through a mental breakdown and realizes he needs to fight fire with fire and wants to bring down the girls once and for all.
Hey, shut up in there.
So he poses as a student at the Townsville Community College, where he calls Professor Utonium to ask what the Powerpuff Girls are made of. Deciding that sugar, spice, and everything nice is too girlish, Mojo deduces that he's going to need something tougher, harder, and manly. Like, what are little boys made of? Ew, I don't like that. He gets snips, snails, and a puppy dog tail from a stolen dog.
Snips and snails and a puppy dog tail, all that leaves is Chemical X.
And the final ingredient, of course, Chemical X, which he actually substitutes for filthy toilet from the toilet in his cell. Ew. The toilet has an explosive tsunami of water and floods the whole prison. He realizes that it's definitely worked. The seeds of evil have been planted. And then Brick, Boomer, and Butch appear, the Rowdy Rough Boys.
Ah, my children.
Hands off! Who do you think you are anyway, Pops?
At first, Mojo's filled with joy, as he's a new father and braces the boys, but they immediately threaten to beat Mojo up, and they are pitted against each other. But Mojo tells them to get the Powerpuff Girls instead. They bust out of prison, dragging Mojo along, and the narrator said these boys are bad to the bone. The next day, the Rowdy Rough Boys challenge the Powerpuff Girls to a battle, just after they bring down the giant octopus attacking Townsville.
What's up with those guys? I think they're asking for a hiney whooping.
They lay out the first strike, but are taken aback at the girls' abilities to retaliate. And both trios just start throwing furious strikes, special attacks to each other's counterparts, and it's kind of interesting. Soon the safety of Townville is at risk, as the boys go so far as to hurl large ships, buses, and sabotage aircraft to distract the girls in battle.
Furthermore, every Wednesday will be Pretzel Day. Hello, Blossom.
Goodbye, Blossom.
Realizing that these rowdy rough boys are psychotically ruthless, the girls also match their energy and everybody is put in harm's way. They try to lure them out of Townsville, but they knock the girls out with toxic fumes. Before the girls can recover, the boys deliver a brutal blow that sends them hurling into the street, and it seems like it defeats them once and for all. The boys run over to Mojo Jojo and they celebrate their victory. Meanwhile, the Townsville people mourn the girls, and we think they're dead, which is kind of dark. But they wake up deep in the crater, and they are ashamed of their defeat, losing all their self-esteem, and they are like, we're gonna leave Townsville forever. But Miss Bellum comes to the rescue and insists that they love them too much to let them go. The secretary tells them that they have lost the fight, but not the battle. They tell the girls that they're fighting from the wrong angle. They need to think of what are boys most afraid of, and instead of violence, try to be nice.
I get it. Ew, gross.
What are you people talking about?
Come on, girls. Let's go get 'em.
The girls run with this advice, head to Mojo's lair, and draw out the rowdy rough boys for another round. This time the girls put their fists back and give flirtatious look, confusing their foes long enough to plant a kiss on the counterpart's cheek. They're overcome with disgust and horror, and the rowdy rough boys explode into their base components. Leaving Mojo to be arrested once again, and the girls discuss the fun of kissing, although Buttercup strongly disagrees, and then the episode ends. This one is really good because it's not just a basic episode of the Powerpuff Girls, it's like they finally have a challenge that isn't easily defeated, and it happens to be an alter ego situation, which I always love. Seeing the masculine versus feminine in this episode just feels so accurate, and I really like the way it's shown. This apparently is also the first 22-minute long episode of the Powerpuff Girls. I feel like the moral is just some problems cannot be solved hitting as hard as you can. It's important to think outside of the box, and it's a really good one. Next we have two ordinary kids and their adventures in the underworld. So for Billy and Mandy, this actually wasn't hard for me at all. I knew 100% what the best episode would be right when I picked the show. Keeper of the Reaper. So in Keeper of the Reaper, Harold announces that he's been transferred at work, meaning Billy and his family are going to have to leave Ennsville.
Hey! Who's that man?
That's my dad.
Oh, you look like him.
He'd better look like me.
Because if he looked like you, he'd be pretty!
Billy attempts to take Grim with him, but Mandy stops him, as neither of them can agree who is going to get custody of Grim. This leads to the suggestion that they settle this in Underworld Court.
I'll see you in court!
Wrong court, dummy.
So they go to court, which is underseen by Judge Roy Spleen, who's in the Big Boogie Adventure later, but this is like one of his first appearances. Several witnesses are called, including Irwin, Jeff the Spider, Little Porkchop, Mindy, Claire, and Philip.
We love her very much. It's just that we're kind of scared of her.
And we get an appearance from Scooby-Doo? The proceedings are constantly disrupted by Fred Burger, who is, for some reason, the main character of this. He even appears in the flashbacks of the episodes, which is super funny.
Grim conjured this!
Hey, who's that lady?
That's my mama.
Does your mama bake cookies?
Sometimes.
Yes. Sometimes my mom bakes me cookies with chocolate chips, and sometimes she bakes me peanut butter bars, and sometimes she doesn't bake me anything. Chocolate chip is my favorite. Yes.
This guy is one of my favorite characters, and it's really fun to watch him be followed in this. After a musical interlude involving the entire courtroom, Judge Spleen tries to settle this dispute while Fred is on the toilet. He rushes the closing arguments, trying to get them to figure out who this is going to be, but neither Billy or Mandy is chosen. Like, they end up being in a tie. Turns out that Fred Burger is going to be the tiebreaker. After Spleen explains the process to Fred and asks him to vote for either Billy or Mandy, he just says yes, which...
Yes!
Yes to Billy or yes to Mandy?
Yes!
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I see.
Spleen realizes that what Fred is saying is that Graham shouldn't be separated for Billy or for Mandy, because it is their both most personal possession and treasure, which causes Spleen and the rest of the jury to break down in tears. As a result, the judge rules that Billy and his family be placed under house arrest and never be allowed to leave Ennsville, essentially giving Mandy custody of Grim. So the episode ends with Billy, Gladys, and Harold sitting in the remains of their home with the half-destroyed house as the guards watch over them. And that's kind of how the episode ends. This one is just so funny because of not only Fred Burger, but the concept of a custody battle between Billy and Mandy. As main characters, they're just so polar opposites, like super playful, optimistic. The other one is super dark and conniving. And just the things that they say they want from Grimm are just ridiculous. Like, it's not even fair.
Me, the keeper of the reaper. I wanna see the keeper of the reaper.
All of this scene is driving me nuts.
Why not just cut me in half?
My ulcer's eating away at my guts.
That would be a real good one.
And the jokes in this are just some of the funniest jokes in the entire series. So if you haven't seen Keeper of the Reaper, this is the best Billy and Mandy episode, hands down. Please watch it. Whew, that took the wind out of me. Thank you guys so much for this journey with me through the Powerpuff Girls, Grimm Adventures, Flapjack, and Ed, and Eddy. Now, what do you guys think about these episodes? Did you agree with me? Were they the best? And what shows would you guys like me to do in the future? Until next time, everybody, this is Johnny 2000.